What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us on another episode of Trey Talk. Alongside me, Mr. Jason Ryback, and of course, the newbie, Matthew Francino. How you doing, boys?
How long until he gets rid of that newbie/probie nickname?
Yeah.
How many episodes?
What's up with that?
I was gonna say I think it's 10 episodes.
Okay.
And the reason why I picked 10 is they said on iTunes, Apple iTunes, that anybody who does a podcast, it's kind of like the 10. Most people quit before they get to 10 episodes because they're not seeing the viewership. It's not like building. Those that make it past the 10 episodes have this massive success rating of, garnering viewership and subscribers. So I think 10 episodes would be good. And I believe this would be number 6 or 7.
I think it's
8.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe you're right. It is 8.
Yeah. So 10 episodes to answer your question.
Okay.
Do you think that's fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's go, probie.
Well, why don't we just jump into it then?
Let's just get it started. This week we're going to be talking about branding and expectations
Ooh,
in business.
Let's go. Get it, girl.
What do general contractors and builders remember more? Your font choice or how fast you returned their call when the project was on fire? Today we're going to be going to talk about real branding in the trades, how your behavior and not your brochure defines your company.
Ooh.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to begin here with brand misconceptions in construction. Now, before I get into the minutia here, I want to know from you guys, what do you believe the difference between branding and marketing is?
I could talk on this for hours. Go ahead, Jay, if you want to take a stab at it first.
I've never really thought about that because I always thought of them as one and the same because your marketing strategy is branding yourself.
I think branding is what the product stands for and what it means, and marketing is the way that you put it out to the public to be consumed. Like Kleenex, for instance. People know Kleenex as a tissue, but that's actually not the case. Kleenex is the brand, and they've done a good job branding it to the point where no one says, give me a tissue. They say, give me a Kleenex. That's branding. Whereas if they were marketing it, they might put Kleenex, buy one, get one, and they put it in a coupon, and they're marketing their product, where branding is kind of solidifying who they are and what the product stands for. That's what I believe to understand it.
Yeah.
I'd buy that.
Yeah?
Hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Logos, websites, slogans is your identity. It's your marketing. It's not your brand. Real brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Ooh, that's good.
With humans, I would compare this to yourself at work would be marketing, and then you around your significant others and your close family would be your brand. Your reputation ties heavily with branding, and if you are known as the guy who never picks up after installing, that's your brand. From installer to salesperson to owner, every employee is a brand representative. Now, we fall in a unique area because with no money spent on traditional marketing, do you think that social media marketing attributes more to our brand than our identity? And the reason I ask this is because this reveals authenticity and true motives that are usually hid behind office walls. I feel like what we do on this podcast is less marketing and more brand. It's who we are without the cameras rolling.
There's no question of a doubt that this podcast shows who is our brand. This is, for somebody to give you money for their goods and services, they have to trust you. How the hell can someone trust you if they don't know what you believe in, how you speak, what you look like? There's so many factors that go in innocuous factors too. So I think the podcast helps build brand and credibility.
I agree. I think putting yourself out there authentically shows the people behind the brand, and therefore that's your brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love this topic. This is really good. I'm anxious to see where you get into this. But I don't think enough people focus on the brand because it's such a long play. It's something that never stops. And you're right. There's some people that we refer, all of us refer, shout out Matt Sendere at Naples Tint. If you're looking to get your car or windows tinted at your home, we refer him. And the one thing I always have to say about Matt from Naples Tint is This guy has never, ever, ever in 10 years in business now missed a phone call. When I've called him, and I wish I could say the same for myself, but I can't. This guy's never not picked up my call. And that's how I explain him to somebody else when they're saying, can you refer me to somebody that does window film? I says, not only can I refer you, I can refer you to a guy that's a high-level professional. And the reason why I say that is there's never not been a time that he's not taken my phone call. He's active in the business, and he's a active owner, and he's somebody that you'd want to have in your Rolodex. And you're right, his identity, the way he carries himself through business is his brand. And I think that's a powerful thing. And it just goes to show, too, that you could ruin your brand with one bad decision publicly or through social media. You know, you could take years. My Shouters built years, decades to build our brand. But now with social media, if I went out and did something really stupid, I could ruin that brand, you know, with one post.
Yeah, you see people boycotting stuff all the time because they don't agree with something someone said or...
That's why we don't usually talk about politics, you know, the polarizing stuff. It's not smart for business.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about how brands, along the lines of brands taking a while or long lasting, because, you know, we can have a company, let's say Nike or something, that there's a brand, but also there's different periods in time where there's marketing campaigns. So the way they target and the way they market changes over time, but the one thing that stays consistent is Nike. You'll always know Nike for Nike, whether they're doing a funny commercial or they have some
controversial commercial. They've been known to do very controversial
having,
stuff.
you know, star athletes promoting their products, but the one thing that stays the same is the brand. So I think for people out there that might have not known the difference between brand and marketing, this is kind of where we get our insight on this.
Absolutely. Great topic.
Yeah, and here's a good one, man. Pat myself on the back here.
Okay.
What are some ways to really make a name for yourself early on? And do you think marketing is essential to eventually accumulating enough experience and network to be a brand?
I can. You want to? So I think consistency and getting getting yourself out there, getting your face in front of people is huge in getting brand awareness. Obviously this is something that we've done for years, but prior to that, there was a local businessman you might remember, Mr. Billy Facillo.
Yeah,
that man had probably the cringiest commercials there were out there.
Yeah.
But everyone knew who the hell the guy was. And if someone was looking for a Kia, first name that comes to mind is Facillo. So getting out there and putting yourself out there consistently, I think is very important.
Consistently, and you can be creative. Maybe you don't have the marketing that Billy Facillo had. I know when we started off early, Dollar Bill, he was a kind of a guerrilla marketer. He found out that if he called either the Naples Daily News or the Fort Myers News Press, that they were always looking for fill-in stories. So they lay out the whole newspaper, but you know, they're printing papers every day, so they need information. And he would write a creative story about something that happened within the business or a big job we were awarded or some of our vertical growth. Whatever the case, every month he would handwrite these stories and he'd send them in. And every now and then they would post one. And every time that happened, the phone would ring off the hook.
Wow.
I remember one morning we wake up and we look in the business section and boom, there's 2 color pictures on the front page of the business section about a family making a living for themselves and some team members off of selling heavy glass shower enclosures. And most people didn't even know that was a thing. And so being creative in ways to be able to get your name out there. And now with social media, there's no reason. I mean, one person can do one post nowadays for $0
right,
and potentially get in front of tens of millions of people for free. That's unprecedented over the history of marketing in business. Never before has that been able. You got to pay for a billboard, newspaper ads, home mag, radio, TV. You had to pay for this, and a lot of decisions had to make and took time. But now with the social media, there's just no reason why people can't put themselves in a potential to grow their business exponentially faster than it was 2 decades ago.
And do you think that means that brands can now be solidified faster than before?
Of course.
Traditional businesses might take 20 years.
Yes.
But if you market for 5 years, the same consistency,
Yes.
That builds a brand.
Well,
pretty quick.
think of the reach you have now. Like back in the day, it used to be you put an ad out, it was in your local newspaper.
Right.
So
Right.
if you had 50,000 people that subscribed to the newspaper, that was your reach. Now you can. It's endless, really.
Right. Yeah. Now, it's not just the marketing aspect. You have to. What is your identity? Are you picking up the phone and calls? Are you calling the people back? Are you getting proposal to them in a timely manner? Are you getting the Google reviews? What is your brand? I think a lot of small businesses lose focus on branding, and they just, in the beginning, they need money. So they're looking for jobs, get new opportunities, close it. But you do have to focus on your brand. Yeah, that's massively important.
Another thing I wanted to cover with brand would be sales, and how can we use brand to close deals? Now, what are some ways you guys think that having branding or a brand can help close deals or assist sales and salespeople?
Well, I think if you brand yourself properly in our particular line of work, you can get yourself spec'd on plans by architects, right? So now if people are looking, maybe it's not necessarily something we're installing, but someone else is looking to give a bid. Well, now they have to come to us because they need to know what this product is and get pricing from us and purchase from us. So that's one way of doing it.
There's an old saying that says you get paid for things you do, like when you're starting a business. And then as you get better at that, you get paid on based what you know. But when you get some tenure and experience, you get paid for who you are. And that's the brand portion of it. So eventually, like Jason said, once you build up a name for yourself, there's other avenues. You get that credibility where the architects or designers feel comfortable enough of putting your spec in a set of plans that goes out to market to bid with all contractors. And that's very difficult to get early when you're starting a business because nobody really knows who you are and they don't want to put their name with you if you're kind of a shithead. So building your brand, once it gets to a certain point where you, like I said in the old saying, you get paid for what you know and who you are, that only really comes with time.
Now, some common techniques that you can use your brand to close deals would be something along the lines of, citing a job site reference like, hey, we did the hotel down on Fifth, or testimonials or reviews and, consistent experience to win confidence. Do you guys find the almost bragging and boastful part of that to be tacky?
Extremely tacky. And I'm guilty. When we first started, I was guilty of that because I didn't know any better. But once I start seeing it happen to myself, it just felt cringe. It was an ick, as you would say, an ick. Yeah. If I'm asked, can you reference some jobs, then I have no problem saying that. But using that part of the sales pitch to help justify why I should be getting that job, I think it's massive cringe.
It's essentially the equivalent of saying, well, we're the best. We're the best.
Yeah.
Or
I've been doing this 20 years. Like, you could be a piece of shit for 20 years.
Yeah. And I can draw a lot of parallels between the, I'm sorry, what were we just talking about? Never mind, scratch that. Bring that up again. I don't know why I just lost track real quick. What
were we
just
talking about?
What the fuck?
Hey, we're doing this live. You gotta fuck up sometimes.
Okay. Bragging about.
Boasting and bragging.
I can draw a lot of parallels to that, to another sales technique, which a lot of people rely on, which isn't really the greatest. And once you realize that is almost cringy too, is common ground.
Ooh, yeah.
It's very much like common ground because it's like, oh, well, that building down the street, we did that. It's just like, oh, you're from here? Yeah, so am I.
Oh, I'm from Ohio. That has no correlation to whether you're qualified to do that job or not.
Screams tacky.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so everyone in Ohio is the greatest glazer ever.
It's a red flag.
And remember how I said, from owners to the salespeople to the installers are all representatives of a brand.
Of course.
How would you handle a situation where, let's say, sales says one thing and installers on the field says or does another thing? And do you believe this would qualify as brand damage?
we could talk about this for a long period of time. It is important for both sides, the front end of the business and the back end of the business, to be lock and step with each other. And so was there an actual scenario how we handle this? I mean, if it obviously in a negative way, you got to take it on the chin, and I would eventually pull the installers aside and reiterate to them that there were certain things that were said with sales and the end user, and that information has been transposed through the takeoff sheets and through the shop drawings. And should there be a question that you're even remotely uncertain about, you should always deflect to, let's just get Keith or Jay or whoever sold this job on the phone. It's not to worry about contradicting something that was said, because some customers, not all, but some customers are waiting, purposely goading the back end of the business on a question that might be contradictory to what was said because they want some type of discount. Or in the beginning, they might have thought they overpaid. So they're just looking for a reason to be able to call back and say, that's not what I was told. What are you going to do for me? So it's massively important for both sides to be, like I said, lock and step.
Yeah, it's certainly damaging to the brand, and you have to be aware of that. And one of the ways that we combat that here is in addition to having shop drawings and things like that, we have weekly meetings with our installers and go through everything. So if there is anything, that they need to know about a particular job, we tell them so they go in prepared and they're not caught off guard, especially if it's someone that is trying to maybe get a little more for the money they're spending.
We know that as sales professionals when we're out there. There's certain red flags like, hey, guy, in that weekly meeting that happens every Tuesday, you see it, we'll have a set of notes. Jay's got the schedule already for the next week. Hey, guys, when you get to this one, you're not parking in the driveway. We're putting the booties on. We're always doing white glove service, but each customer's different. Maybe this is new construction, and we got to make sure we got to call Johnny before we get there, 30 minutes out. But constant communication helps alleviate those potential situations, which could damage the brand because it could lead to a bad Google review or not getting any referrals in the future. So I think it's really important.
I can remember back in the shower door days, there was a couple times we had customers that were highly sensitive to smells and chemicals and things. So like the caulking, we had to warn them ahead of time. Hey, we're gonna start siliconing, so you might want to turn a fan on and get out of the room. We had to be conscientious of different cleaners and things that we're using.
We have cats. Make sure the guys don't leave the doors wide open because the cats don't want to get out.
Yeah.
There's all types of things.
Well, brand may help us close a deal, but that is hardly where the work ever ends. So what are some effective ways to make sure that the brand is upheld through the whole process? And allowing ourselves to be humble here, where can we improve?
Well, I think it all starts with communication. All problems stem from a lack of communication or clarity of that communication. So one way of improving is more communication, not only with the customer, but internally and then after the fact. I think customers are less likely to blow up or be that stage 5 clinger if they know there's always constant communication, because it takes the fear of the unknown out of the question.
I agree with that. And I think in addition to communication, being aware of who the customer is and how the customer is. Because if we know there's a particular customer who maybe is a little flighty, or, you've had to explain things to them several times, maybe at the beginning you ask what we could do better. Maybe at the beginning of the job, before we start anything, we can take the shop drawings over to them and just go over, okay, we just want to make sure this is everything, even though they've signed off on it, just something visual in front of them. So that way sometimes when they look at these shop drawings, maybe they have questions and they don't want to answer them, or ask them, and they just go and sign off on it. So at least if they have someone in front of them that they can ask these questions to, maybe that'll kind of alleviate some of the things on the back end.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. Well, you guys ready to move on to, I know, both your favorite parts?
It's a game.
And you know what? Actually, I won't spoil it, but I got another surprise for you.
Hey, he's not going to spoil it, but it's a game.
It's a game.
Yeah, but all right, you'll see.
All right.
So this week, we're going to try something a little different here. This is going to be the true pillars of a trade brand. All right.
True pillars of a trade brand.
So right here, I have.
I feel like
that kind of just spoiled
What's
it a
going
little
on
bit.
here?
It's a whiteboard.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like a test.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank. Well, you guys are. You're going to rank these different pillars of a brand, of a trade brand, on a scale 1 to 10, 1 being the most important, but without knowing what comes next. So put your heads together and think,
You're going to give us 10.
I'm going to give you 10, and without knowing what's next, you have to rank them all where you see them. So,
So when you say put our heads together, we're doing this together, or we're just
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could talk
we're
it
doing
out.
this
you
as a
guys can
team?
talk it out.
Okay.
We can talk it out.
All right, I might have already spoiled it. There's 2 rounds of this.
Okay, good.
So if you guys want to do one each, or you want to do both together,
No,
I think
let's do
both
it
together.
together.
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm going to go down the list.
Especially not knowing what the list. I mean, are you going to let us know what the? Oh, we're not going to
No,
know.
you got to
We're
go
not gonna
one at a
know.
time without knowing. So
Okay.
you got to choose what's most important, what could be next.
Yeah, what could be next? Okay,
This one's going to be probably the hardest game we've played.
I like it.
So let's start here. The first pillar of a trade brand, responsiveness. This is returning emails, calls, and proposals quickly.
To me, this is an important component, but I don't know that it's the most important component.
I think it's in the upper echelon, but I don't think it's
Top
right
5?
at the top. I would say it's probably top 5 at the end, at the tail end of top
Okay,
5.
hold on. We're not picking yet. What, do you know of 1 or 2 things that would be more important than responsive? Because let's think about this. If there's a problem, when they call, they want you to pick up right away. If they're ready to buy and they're calling you, it's important that you pick up right away, being very responsive. So one could argue, I mean, responsiveness, man, the more I'm thinking about it, could be like 3.
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah.
I heard. Let's go 3. Let's go 3.
Yeah. All right.
Just because we don't know what the hell is out there.
Yeah. Second one.
Not me forgetting how to spell responsiveness. All right. Second one, clarity. Clean, easy to interpret, well organized, and honest quotes. This also can include clarity on lead times, variables that might come up in the job.
Oof.
Oof.
That's
I mean,
like
that's
an
gotta be
important
like
one.
right behind that.
But when you say behind, like closer to more important or less
A
important?
little less. I would say like 4 or 5. It would be my. I hate
guess
leaving the
each
1 and 2
I
open,
know,
but
I know.
but I don't know what's gonna come up.
What could be more important? Okay.
Unless what are you thinking?
It's the unknown that's killing me too.
It is.
I'm also thinking he's not going to give us the most important one right out of the gate, or is he? Can you read it again? Clarity.
Clarity, this has to do with clean, easy to interpret, well organized, and honest quotes. This can also include being clear on lead times and variables that may come into play. Upfront, transparent.
It's got to be below 4. So it's either 4 or 2. I'm not so sure. My instinct's not saying 1.
Yeah, I'm leaning 4.
Okay, 4.
Let's go 4.
What's the third one?
Okay, third one. We've got consistency. Consistency is service that is consistent across across different projects. Same quality job, no matter the price tag. Team aligned across sales and installation.
Okay, read what the top line is. We're putting these in order of what now most important to least important. So
Yep, one's
in
gonna be the
what?
most important.
In building your brand?
Yeah, and the pillars of a trade brand.
A trade brand. Okay, so consistency, that's massive. If you're not consistent, because think about
Yeah.
a brand, the consistency is almost one of the most important. Like for me, when I was in this phase, I'm not any longer, as you can tell from the videos and the physique. McDonald's French fries was like crack to me. And the one thing that you could count on with McDonald's French fries, no matter where you are in the country, is they're the same.
Yeah.
And so when I think and brag, when I used to think or brag about McDonald's French fries, aside from loving them, I knew I could love the same ones no matter where it was. If I was in Dubuque, Iowa, or Naples, Florida, or Boston, Massachusetts, the French fries at McDonald's were going to be the same because they were consistent.
Yeah.
That's important.
Your blood had a different consistency.
Yeah. Our customers are willing to do business with us over and over again without questioning the price because they were predictable, because we've been so consistent.
I think that's up there. That's one or two.
Yeah.
You guys want to save the one spot just in case?
To me, I want to because there's still 7 more.
I know.
Consistency. Let's go number 2. What do you think?
Let's two.
Yeah.
All right. The fourth one, we've got, Bryce is going to love this one. Proactive communication. This is updating clients on lead times, delays, or scope concerns before they ask.
That's so important.
And this is providing insight instead of answers.
Yeah. This shows that you care. When when someone calls or you get a call when you're not expecting it to kind of put your mind at ease, that's somebody who generally cares about the relationship and about the goods and services they want to deliver. I could go 6. I could go 7.
Jay? 6 or 7?
I'm gonna say, jeez, it's important, but I don't know what else is there. Let's go 7.
Okay.
Okay. Next, we have accountability.
Wait, you think it's okay? You already said the next one, so it's down there. Okay, accountability.
Are you looking at my paper?
No, I can't see that far.
Accountability. Owning mistakes quickly and fix without excuses. Show up where there is a problem. Create solutions.
I just want to remind everybody, even though one of these might be a 10, you need these 10, I can already tell, to be have these strong pillars within. So there is 10 pillars within the brand building, and all of them are important. But in order of most importance.
I hate to do it, but I think I want to use the number 1 on this one.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Okay, read it again.
Accountability. This is going to be owning mistakes quickly, fixing without excuses, show up when there's a problem, and creating solutions.
Because think about it this way. Nothing ever goes perfect every time. There's always going to be little hiccups, little problems, but it's not about what the problem is. It's about how you respond to it and how you correct it.
But we already said clarity is number 4, and if you were doing your...
Clarity was being clear on things.
Yes. And in the beginning of the qualifying process, we'd be very clear that the type of company we are is we own our mistakes. God forbid there's a problem or something happens during this process that you don't like, you should know that you can reach out to us at any time. So
Well, if you're going
they
by
should
that,
already know we're going to this.
if you're going by that,
Well,
then you could say
I
we're
get
also
it.
responsive
I
and
love
we're
it.
consistent.
Okay.
I love the
we're
debates
proactive.
here. This is what we want.
I agree. I don't think that's going to be number 1.
Okay, where do you got it?
I think it's very important. I would put it at 5.
Okay. Accountability is going number 5. Okay. Next, we have simplicity. Now, simplicity is going to refer to can customers understand your workflow, processes, and verbiage. Payment terms, contracts, and paperwork make sense.
Yeah, this is a 8, 9, or 10 job.
Yeah.
Little softball there.
Yeah.
I would go 9 right in the middle.
9.
Next,
Ooh.
here's another one. Oh, man. Reliability.
Ooh.
Reliability refers to crews arriving on time, deliver on and within scope without excuses, and people being able to depend on your word.
Now that to me would be a number 1.
Ooh.
With 3 left. I mean, I need to count on you.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to close on the house.
Agreed.
Yeah, I listened to your price. I'm paid more than I wanted to. I need to count on you. Otherwise, they're never going to do business with you again.
You know what? I can buy that, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're not reliable, everything else goes out the window.
Everything.
Oh,
we talked about this today when we went and looked at that job that today, just a little footnote, Jay and I stopped by a project. We did a ton of glasswork at this project. There was one scope that they pulled out and gave it to another sub because it was much cheaper. It was a very expensive commodity. There was a problem with it.
It's cheaper then.
It was cheaper then. And they called us back to fix it. and they know they're going to pay for it because they can count on us. And I think they gave us a lot. I think this company and other companies have given us a lot of jobs because, not because we've made mistakes, because we have, but we fix them because they know they can count on us. They know they can get a hold of Jay. They know they can get a hold of me. They can get a hold of you. I'm going, this is number one.
Numero uno on
Yeah.
this?
Yep.
Wow. All right. We got it.
Reliability.
There you go, everyone. Okay, now we got 6, 8, and 10.
Okay.
Word of mouth. What do supers, PMs, and owners say about you? Are you known as fixers? Do others advocate for you when you're not in the room? How important is word of mouth?
I think word of mouth is extremely important in building a brand, and it's the best form of advertisement, right?
Yes.
That being said, we don't know what the other two are.
They say the Better Business Bureau or Chamber of Commerce says that if you make a customer happy, very happy, they'll tell maybe up to 3 people. Whereas if you piss them off, they'll tell 300 people passionately.
Wow.
So word of mouth is important, and the only way you're getting from a referral is if you exceed their expectations. Because otherwise, they're getting what they paid for. They don't feel obligated to go out and, be a spokesperson for your business. So once you exceed expectations, I think that's when the referrals come in. I would say this should be probably 8, or were you thinking 6? Were you thinking 6?
I'm tossed up between 6 and 8 because simply because I don't know what else is still there. I do know that word of mouth is very important in building a brand. I just don't know if the others are important.
I think
More
8.
important.
I'm going.
Let's go 8.
Okay, we got 2 more.
Okay. What's the next one?
We've got finishing strong. Close out clean, quick, and without drama. Documents, warranties are wrapped up without hand-holding. And it's also how you leave the customer feeling.
Oh my God, I know you're probably thinking the same thing as me.
The last impression
is
the
a lasting
impression.
impression. That's right.
So you're, based on saying that, you're going 6.
I'm going to say 6.
Okay.
Okay, so that means we put
Quality of work or some shit.
professionalism at number 10. Trucks are clean, crews in uniforms, job site behaviors, and customer service.
I think it's 10.
Yeah. Again, these are all important. It's
Yeah,
just
because
about-
all those before it, I think it's actually perfect that it's 10 because all those before it fall under being professional.
Yeah, it builds up. You're building up the expectation of number 10.
Okay, we got reliability number 1, consistency number 2, responsiveness number 3, clarity number 4, accountability number 5, finishing strong number 6, proactive communication number 7, 8 is word of mouth, number 9 is simplicity, and 10 is professionalism. I think that's not too bad.
I feel actually pretty good. I might switch 1 or 2 of them, but what if you had to switch any looking at those, Jay? Now, which one would you?
Let me
if
see
you
them
could
again.
only switch one, which
Okay.
one would you switch?
Ignore the chicken scratch.
You
Okay,
should be a
okay,
doctor with
let's
that
see.
handwriting. Matt, if you
Man,
had to switch one, would you switch any?
If I had to switch one,
Yeah.
I got one.
I would move word of mouth. I would replace word of mouth with clarity.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly.
because you could have a really good word of mouth, and if your proposal or your presentation isn't too good, people will look past it because they know what they're getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so.
All right. We got another one?
Well, especially they
gonna
heard from people they trust.
Yes. We're gonna save that one a little later towards the end.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil you guys too much. All right, so now we're going to move on to the second half of this.
Well, how do we
topic.
do? What's the answer?
There is no answer.
It's
okay.
objective.
Every answer's right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see how I could mess with you guys. And
I like it because they do that sometimes. I see on TikTok where they say rank these 10
Yeah.
foods and like you don't know which ones,
Yeah.
but you're kind of anticipating which ones there could be. So it's fun.
so we've talked about branding, we've talked about marketing, we talked about all that encompasses. Now I want to talk about expectations. Kind of go hand in hand, not really, but almost there. I want to start here with, do you think that having expectations, good or bad, about jobs, builders, or customers is inherently good? Or should we just treat every scenario as a fresh slate?
So you're saying as a business having expectations or as a consumer having expectations of the business?
Consumers, I believe consumers having expectations, they can do whatever they want. That's just their right. As us, as a business, do you think that having expectations about jobs, builders, or our customers is good or bad?
Well, you should always have an open mind because
Yeah.
you can never be certain. However, there's a certain level of expectations that we know that we should be meeting to at a minimum. I feel like we need more context. to
I
this.
think it's good to have cautious expectations because you can expect someone to do something, but you don't really know that person well enough to know if they're
Right.
going to follow through
Right.
on it.
Yeah.
So in the back of your mind, you still need to prepare for the what if.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a good one for whoever wants to answer it. Name one time your expectations were out of this world, super high, and it just did not deliver. What did you learn? And now this could be a customer, this could be a contractor, someone we work with, not of us. This is us with others.
One story that comes to me about having managed expectations was there's a builder that we had done some work for. This was years ago. And there was a situation with this builder and the product that we installed that it needed service. And come to find out, it needed to be replaced. And it was well after the warranty, but this was a good customer of ours. And we took it on the chin. And this builder expected us to take it on the chin, which made it a little bit more difficult because he wasn't being sympathetic or empathetic with
Right.
the situation at all. But it felt like the right business decision, even though it was extremely hard to do. Conversely, maybe 6 months to a year after that, this builder made a mistake while we were on the job, and I had expected that this person would recall the similar scenario that I expected him to take it on the chin, and that didn't happen. Or it didn't happen initially, and that really rubbed me the wrong way. So having managed expectations and always being curious, I think, is the best way to get into those
Managed
situations.
expectations.
Managed expectations.
Wow.
Because otherwise, if you allow yourself to get triggered, nothing good's going to come out of that. You know, what's that saying that Voss says? Yeah, the best, giving a speech while you're angry would be the best speech that you regret or something like this. Like just having managed expectations and being curious going into these scenarios, I think is the good tactic.
I don't know that I have one particular story off the top of my head, but there are a lot of instances where people that we're business partners that we deal with all the time, contractors, even repeat homeowners, where you expect when they tell you something is ready for us to come and measure or install metals or do whatever the next step of the process is, you expect it to be ready when they tell you it is, and then you arrive and it's not.
And you expect them to know how important your time is to go through that whole process. And a lot of times they don't.
You're absolutely right, because then it's, oh, well, can you come back tomorrow? Well, yeah, let me cancel all the other appointments I have the rest
Which
of
means
this
right
week.
there, you already have expectations of them being respectful to your time, which more often than not, they're not. And so what do we learn from that? Jay and I, Jay had a full head of hair when we started doing this business. We got beat up enough to know that now we call ahead of time. Shower door, I think, calls 2 days before the installs now, just because that helped mitigate a lot of these potential situations. So, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. That was something that we picked up on, not fairly quickly, but that was one of the things that we.
I think we took our lumps and then
Yeah.
learned it.
Now, have you ever had a time where your expectations were as low can get? You just thought, this is never going to work, or I'm never going to get this job, or this is going to turn out horrible. And then you were just pleasantly surprised and it was the complete opposite. Did you learn anything from, maybe having your expectations too low?
Yes. Well, I don't. the story I would share would be this big wine cellar that we recently
Oh my
had
God,
to
that's exactly what I was going to say.
we had to replace a piece of glass. That we installed this piece of glass before, like, the roof was even on this place, because there was cranes and machines in there. It made it easy. But to replace it after the house was built gave me anxiety for almost 4 months. Like, I was losing sleep over it. And I had set this level of expectations because I was scared. And same with Jay, to the point where it was hard for me to even fathom doing this job. And once we did it, it went much better than we anticipated. And that kind of, I think, helps lift our expectations for potential situations like that in the future. So
We
it's
get the-
necessary to go through that. It's necessary to help push through that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You get the experience and you learn from the experience and you realize it's really not that bad.
I thought it was
might
a
seem
coin
bad.
flip whether we were even going to get the job done or not. I
Yeah.
mean, I was nervous, and that would cause a big problem if we weren't able to, because then we let down the customer. Now we don't become reliable. We're not being consistent to the way we've been. You know, all those things are kind of going through your head, and that's what's everybody's scared. It's just a matter of what are you scared of, and we didn't want to be scared of being a failure. And so I was nervous as hell.
And the sad part is you think you would learn from that, right? Because we've gone through things like this before where, like, oh man, I don't think we're going to get this done. Like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And then it ends up being no problem. And so learning from that, you want to say, okay, well, it's no problem. But in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, which one of these is going to be the
Right,
problem?
right.
Yeah.
Now, what would you guys say you guys lean towards, and this could just be in life, this doesn't even have to be in business. Do you guys lean toward maybe having a lower expectation on everything, kind of just to protect that sense of, you know, not letting yourself down or something not living up to what it's supposed to be? Or are you kind of a more happy-go-lucky person where your expectations are pretty high and you have a good outlook on situations? Both having different, you know, outcomes. You know, having a lower expectation on life means you can be surprised more in that you're not let down as much if something doesn't go your way. And then the other way, if you have higher expectations of things that are going on, you could be let down more.
I've learned through going through every example that you just said, and maybe a little bit of maturity in there, to have more managed expectations. So be more on the lower side of the expectation, is to not put that fear within me or having that cortisol kind of running through my body. So having more managed expectations has done well for me.
I would agree with the managed expectations part. I don't know that I would necessarily err on the lower side or the higher side. I would try and be somewhere in the middle, because I feel like if you lower your expectations too much, you can almost depress yourself.
Right.
Oh, yeah, or hurt your brand.
Right. And if conversely, if you go the other way with it and you have higher expectations, again, you can almost depress yourself because it's like you're getting let down all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
We still can have high expectations without causing anxiety with everybody else around. I think there's some of these movies where you see these like Michelin rated chefs that are back in the kitchen, and they're typically like authoritarian. They have super high expectations, but yet they have the most amount of turnover within that organization too. So is it good to have extremely high expectations? I guess it's how you carry those expectations to all your team members.
Great point.
Out loud.
Great point.
So having managed expectations out loud for everybody, I think, bodes for better collaboration.
Well, that's very true. Like you said, that's how you communicate that to others. Because, you know, let's take an athlete for example. In every athlete in their mind is like, I'm the best ever. They've got high expectations, but the ones that are cocky assholes are the ones that no one wants to play with.
It's true.
Okay, so what do you think are some top expectations customers have us for a brand? And which expectations do we set ourselves up for the most?
I would like the reliability. I think that's a very one that there was an old saying. I love this one. One of your best abilities is availability, and we're always available.
Wow.
And so they can count on us, whether it's a new opportunity, whether it's a service call, whether it's just information, whether it's maybe they need a contact that we have or a resource that we can put them in touch with. We want, when people are thinking about custom architectural glasswork, we want them to know that we're available all the time. So availability, I think, is a real good one.
Yeah, I would second that, but I also would say responsiveness because, like I said, you nothing is. I shouldn't say nothing. Most things are never going to go completely as planned. So it's how you respond to it and how you make it better.
Yeah,
And that's something that'll be remembered. And like we said, the last impression is a lasting impression.
There you go.
yeah.
All right, let's get to the psychology portion of this. This will be quick, less nerdy than the others. This comes from Human Psychology, and it's titled "Expectations: The Real Happiness Killer." So the psychological, and I want to say the traditional definition for expectations, are strong beliefs that something will happen or be the case. More than anything else, though, our expectations determine ours and those around us realities. Research shows that this happens because when we believe in someone, we treat them better than people we think will fail. We give them more opportunities to succeed. We give them more helpful feedback, and we do more teaching because we believe it's time well spent. Knowing this information, how can businesses and salespeople get the customers to believe in them and therefore set these expectations?
I mean, I think one of the most important things that we talked about earlier would be word of mouth and consistency, because word of mouth, again, they're going to listen to people they trust. And so if other people have said, you know, this company's been amazing, they've held up the 10 pillars we spoke about, right? They're going to be more likely to kind of jump on board with that.
I like the saying, seek first to understand in order to be understood. And when you can show somebody that you're listening to them, I think you instantly kind of build this bond where you're able to start figuring out things together instead of, I think traditional negotiation is like, I got to win, this one's got to lose, and we're like, who gets the most, who's the loudest. But when you can go in and try and understand by delivering empathy to make them know that you know where they're coming from, I think that's a very powerful.
You believe that instills belief in us.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Because people will justify, they'll buy on emotion and they'll justify with logic. And one of the strongest things is I'm willing to overpay for something if I trust you. And the only way I can trust you is know that you know where I'm coming from.
Right.
And to do that, you have to be a good listener. And so I think that's a real important aspect of the initial communication between the two.
Okay, so some common expectations that can be happiness killers are like the following. Life should be fair. Everyone should like me. I must always do well. And, things will make me happy, like money. What are some expectations that can be business killers? These could be expectations you have, maybe.
I don't understand the question.
So, these would be expectations. Let's say you have an expectation that life would be fair or life is fair. Okay. Obviously, that's not a real expectation.
That's not, yeah.
So that would be a happiness killer if you had that expectation.
Yes.
What are some expectations maybe a young business owner can have that are business killers?
Well,
I'll give you an example. A young business owner being, I'm going to do great. This is going to take off. I'm going to make my money back in a year.
Yeah.
Is that a business killer expectation?
Yes.
What else would be kind of like along the lines of a business killer?
Well, when we first started doing Shower Door, we started doing all of our branding, and then we brought on the own manufacturing. I says, oh my God, every builder in town is going to be lining up to do business with it. They're going to be begging for us to do their work. And it wasn't long after opening the manufacturing, that was not the case. And I was stunned, humbled by that, because it was a big investment to go vertical and have our own manufacturing. And quite a few of them, when we were doing lunch and learns, would basically yawn when we were showing the manufacturing. They didn't actually really give a shit. And so that was a happiness killer for me. I thought it was going to open the door. It has opened a lot of doors for us since doing it, but it wasn't plug in the machine, and people were lining up to do business with us. So that was, I kind of over exceeded my expectations on how much we were going to be able to leverage the new manufacturing. That was a killer.
Yeah, and I think obviously that's right, but not managing your own expectations, and it's something along the lines of what you said, like, well, this business, based on what the other guys in this market are doing, this business should double next year.
Right.
Here's another one.
And then when it doesn't happen, now you're
Pissed.
you're yeah.
A new business owner a lot of times was an operator at one point and now becomes a business owner. Mm-hmm. And there's two big differences there. And I think that person that goes from being an operator to a new business owner, one thing is having expectations of your staff, having managed expectations, because a lot of new business, how come so-and-so, Johnny doesn't work as hard as I do? Like, if I could just find 5 other people that are working as hard as I do, then all these problems would disappear and I'd be making all this money. But the reality is those people aren't putting in the same amount of effort because they don't stand to gain the same amount of reward as you. You're the owner.
Right.
So having a certain level of expectations on your team members or staff is important, because otherwise it's going to kill you. And now this energy you have around your business and brand is probably going to be off-putting. Right?
Yeah.
Having managed expectations with staff is important. They're brought in to do a specific job. And if you're thinking that they should be doing that job like an owner, then I hope you're paying them like an owner.
And, for the happiness killers you mentioned earlier, the rose-colored glasses, what's one expectation you should never have getting into a business?
Life is easy.
Yeah, it's going to, just because you're in business now, that you're automatically going to be successful. The number, statistically speaking, is like 90% of the time when you open a business, you're going to fail in the first 2 years. So that's probably like the biggest eye-opening one that I saw. Just because you're a business owner now, that doesn't, Lambos aren't fucking pulling out, bankers aren't going to just start lending you all this money. They're heavy as the head that wears the crown. So you have opportunities to achieve all these things, but the likelihood is not in your favor, not even close. And we've seen that.
Yeah.
Well said. All right, let's move on to our final section here, and this is going to be another game where you're going to have to put your heads together. But this time, I'm going to go through same format.
Okay.
These are going to be expectations we have with other trade partners. So think builders, think contractors.
Okay.
We're going to rank you guys, not me. I'm going to laugh. You guys are going to rank these expectations as a trade partner on a scale 1 to 10, being most important, without knowing what comes next.
Yes.
So think about your ideal contractor. Think about your ideal builder, someone you want to work with.
I have 3 of them in my head right now,
Okay.
and I know the list of things that are important.
Let's start off here. Clear scope of work. This is going to be a scope being finalized before mobilize. If scope changes, we have a chance to reprice or reallocate. Clear scope of work.
I think that's pretty low down there.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
Yeah. Let's give it an 8.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'll tell you why I say 8, and then you can rebuttal. If it's somebody I really like which I imagine that's what's happening, we're going to put them in the order. If it's somebody I really like, I can just call and say, hey, listen, I need some clarity on this. Should I call the architect? What was the homeowner thinking? And we'll have that communication. I kind of like having that dialogue, because during that opportunity, a lot of times more information comes out, or even some more opportunities come out. So,
well, that's right. And with those other opportunities, there's certain customers that you'll get to know that you're never going to have a clear scope of work, because they're going to always change things or add things on, and that's fine. That's just a new opportunity.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was quick. Okay, number 2. Respect for our process. This is going to be, workflows being respected, not constantly rushed or skipped, no shortcutting or treating us as anything but professionals.
Okay, this is important.
Yeah.
And it takes a special customer that doesn't just look at themselves only, but is a true collaborator. Only a true collaborator can say, okay, we're going to use my architectural glass on this railing project. We know that if it's laminate glass, it's going to be 2.5 to 3 weeks. Here we are. We don't want to rush them because we know they don't like that. Let's start calling them at this stage. There's not a lot of people that will do that, but the ones that do, we love that because there's nothing worse than doing a big custom job and then being told you have to be rushed.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't help anybody. So I don't know, my initial reaction was almost like maybe 3.
I was gonna say 4. So I don't know.
4.
We can go either
4?
way. My gut's saying 4.
Okay. Your gut's bigger than mine.
All right, number 3. All right, here's a good one. Fairness in closeout and payment. Expect to be paid for what we did and not punished for unrelated project issues, change order issues. This is getting paid, baby.
Yeah. There's mechanisms that you can put in place to make sure you get paid. I mean, it's important.
Okay.
Right.
Good
I don't
point.
know that it's at the top though.
Yeah, we want to get paid. So I think that most people think, well, that's got to be the most important. The most important thing is to keep getting more work from this person.
I'm
Okay,
thinking,
let me ask you this: is it in the top 5?
No, it's on the right side of the board.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What number?
I was thinking 6 or 7.
Okay,
6 or 7.
6.
All right.
I think that says a lot about who we are to put that,
Well, yeah, because
There.
most people
because that means
that'd
we
be
put a
their
lot of
number-
trust in
number
those
one.
people. Yes.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people would put payment as number 1.
Yeah.
But if you're being a true humble servant, the customer would appreciate the fact that you're not nagging for the money all the time, that you've done your business and due diligence enough that you don't have to be, you trust that they're going to send it through the process.
Not only that, but if you do everything right and they're not paying you and they're any type of a decent human being, they're going to feel guilty. So
Yeah.
they're going to end up paying you.
And maybe even give you more work because it triggered that guilt.
Right. Reciprocity.
Yeah.
All right, next one is going to be being brought in before the fire, not during. This could be something along the lines of, being prompt and getting us scheduled in the right manner of time, or instead of doing it right the first time, bringing us in after someone else already screwed up.
I mean, here's my take on that. The bringing us in after someone else screwed up, to me, I just see it as a new opportunity because it's something that wasn't there before. So I don't know necessarily
But
look at that
having
as
the-
a complete negative. Cleaning up the mess of it, yeah, that's a little bit of an issue, but that's why you have number 6, payment. Because if you're cleaning up the mess, you're getting paid a little more.
So you would put that after payment.
No.
5?
I'm thinking 5.
Okay, I'd go with that.
Okay.
Next one.
Ooh. Realistic timelines. Okay, this is going to be lead times to be respected, not compressed, material deliveries and prep work being coordinated with actual needs.
I mean, I think you and I would both say that's important, but we also are realistic and know that it just doesn't happen. It's very rare when everything falls into place because you have so many different trades that you have to collaborate with.
But he said in a perfect scenario with, a contractor that's like on the ball, where would that rank with
well, I mean,
that person?
that would be
So this contractor is going to do all of these things. We're saying let's rank them in the amount of importance to us. So where does that fall for you? Would that be
How important is it that someone has realistic timelines on a job?
massively important?
yeah.
I think it's in the top 5.
Which would be the top 3?
Yeah, I think it would have to be 3.
3. Realistic timelines. Okay. Next.
Yeah, because if it's not realistic, you're dead man walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we see it all the time. It's like, oh, you make the glass, you can turn it around in
Now,
a day.
some
Yeah,
people
we
use
could,
that as if a shark could use that as a tactic to get a lower price. Like he could start off by saying, I got this job, blah, blah, blah. Money's not important. We just need to get it done. And I need to get it done in 4 days. And you're like, well, it takes me a week to get the stuff. How can I possibly do 4 days? Oh, man, if I'm going to go out a week, then you got to help me out on the price. So they could be falsifying the realistic time frames in order to get something lower down the road. So somebody that's being upfront and honest with realistic time frames, I think, is important. So I think that's a good spot.
Okay. How important is reasonable access to a job site? This could be site being prepped or coordinated properly and not being penalized for delays or standbys on the job site. Or, this could even extend to having to park your truck at the end of the road. Is it a high rise? Is it, in a penthouse?
Yeah.
This is either 9 or 10 for
I
me.
was going to say, that's all part of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
9, 10?
I'd almost put that 10.
Yeah.
All right. Next. Strong leadership. This could be a super or, someone higher up with the company you're working with. Being there when it matters and makes calls. And having mutual respect for your leadership.
I think that's important,
Yeah. 2?
too.
Okay. Strong leadership. Very important. Okay. Open communication. No, that's the next one. Open communication. This would be honest heads up and feedback. So if we're doing something wrong or they're doing something wrong, both sides are open to that feedback and having that communication.
Well, I think communication is paramount to anything. I wouldn't put it number one, though, in this case.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we're kind of hamstring our stuff to not put it in number one. So are we saying 7 to be a good communicator? That's so important. When there's a problem, you want to know that there's somebody you can count on to call and keep pushing that ball forward.
Yeah, yeah.
I almost feel like it has to be number one.
Okay.
Communication. Yeah.
Open communication. Okay.
Yeah.
Now this one is very similar but different.
I actually feel good about that.
Okay. That is horrible. The next one's going to be relationship beyond contract. Now, this is going to mean this is going to be the human element that makes the work feel more personal instead of dealing with the robotic contract parrots that say, well, according to this, you guys have to do this. And, well, as per the signed contract, I'm talking about the human relationship between two companies, two businesses that make it worth doing, make it worth working with someone. We all know those builders we love working with on the personal level. How important is that personal aspect, the relationship beyond the contract?
That's going to have to go 7 because that's the highest left. But
Jay's saying that, and I agree with him because that's the only open slot we have
put it higher
closest to
than
number
that,
one.
though.
I think it should be higher than 7, but because we're there,
Right.
7.
Probably should have been 1.
There are people that we would run through fire for. There's a handful of builders that could call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would get out of bed and get in my truck and go to the job site for. But there's other ones that I wouldn't even, do not disturb. I'd bitch button.
And that leaves our last one, and I think this might fall in a good place. Abusing warranty. How important is it that someone respects the warranty, doesn't abuse it? This would be calling us every single time something minute comes up. Or we might have had this recently, someone that, to get the most bang for their buck, try to squeeze the warranty in issues that may not pertain to us because they feel like they got burned on the price. So, well, if I got a year warranty, you best bet I'm going to use that full year.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think it's perfect for 9, even though it doesn't happen very often. It happens enough for it to potentially be an issue, but if you're doing what you say you're going to do and you do a bang-up job on it, you do a good job, the warranty's really not even a non-issue.
Yeah.
We don't get many callbacks at all. And if we do, we go and take care of it. Some of our best
it's not
customers...
sometimes it's not even our issue, and we'll take care of it.
Right. But we've had customers that we did have an issue, and because we were able to handle it, the warranty issue, it's led to more business.
Right.
All right. So we ended with open communication being number 1, strong leadership being number 2, realistic timelines being number 3, respect for work, number 4, brought in before the fire is number 5, 6 is payment, 7 is relationship beyond contract, 8 is going to be clear scope of work, 9 being warranty issues, and 10 access to job site. How does that sound?
I like it.
I think it's good.
What would you change?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna swap 7 and 1 just because that's one.
Yeah. And I wanted to really make the distinction between the two. Open communication could be someone you've never had a relationship with, you just met, but goddamn, do they get back to you quickly? Are they prompt? Are they, clear with what they say to you?
Yeah.
And then relationships just like, my buddy's calling and
It's so-and-so.
Right.
Because we've known them
Right.
for 20 years, and we have we text each other outside of work.
so those two I feel like could be interchangeable only because they're so similar in some aspects. They all include a communication human element to
Yeah,
it.
likability is massive.
Right.
And
Yep.
that relationship, people are willing to, again, they buy an emotion, and if they like you, that's an important thing. They'll justify it with logic. Might not be the most logical decision, but the emotional component is very strong. So it's good to have strong relationships like that. I
Well,
wish-
yeah. If it came down to 2 bids that were very close in price, but your price is a little bit higher, well, they like you. They're going to take your price.
That's one of the
No
main
questions
reasons,
asked.
Matt, why we do this podcast. Well, when Jay and I first started it, we were bringing in a builder or an architect in hopes of them getting to know us, and we get to know them, and building that relationship stronger in order to hopefully get more work. Because we needed to separate ourselves from all the other, service providers. Whereas now if you get into that friend status, that changes the game. Sometimes they're willing to give you information that you didn't even expect to get before you started bidding on the project. They don't just do that for anybody. Nobody's ever going to show you your cards unless they really trust you or they really like you. So I think we've put a lot of stock into that over the years.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have for today's episode. With closing remarks, any stories, anything on your mind this week, anything you learned today? What's going on in your guys' week that might be worth sharing?
Well, that warranty issue that we brought up, I think that
Yeah.
we're all talking about the same job.
Yeah.
I don't know how we could have learned from that because it was kind of a new service.
I think this is a product of good customer service gone wrong.
Yeah.
So maybe we should recap it a little
Yeah.
bit.
Go ahead.
So we had a customer. We had done some work for his builder several years ago, and what this was, it was glass railings, but the way that they had us install it is they had us install everything down prior to the tile, and then they did their waterproofing and then put the tile over top of it. So they're vertical posts, and then they did waterproofing and tiling over top of it. The customer is now getting ready to sell the house, and they said they've got all this what looks like rust on their tile. So immediately we're thinking, okay, maybe it's a chemical reaction because there's a spa right next to it, or maybe there's a cleaner being used because this is all marine grade stainless being used. So it naturally would be something like that, or there was a problem with the waterproofing underneath. Whatever it may be, we went out there. We agreed to remove everything, so we remove all the glass, clean all the metals, clean their tile up, then replace everything for a cost. The customer had a tough time swallowing the cost in the beginning, just because they didn't understand all the logistics of it, I think is what it was. Keith was able to overcome that and explain why the price was what it was. At that point, he understood. We went out, we did everything. The next day, he says, hey, everything went great. Guys did a great job. It looks like maybe they put the metal down and there's some rust spots on my tile. And it sends a picture of this small little area.
Not where we were working. All those spots are done.
Right.
In a different location.
So I went out there knowing what we could use to clean this up. Went out there, cleaned it up. He says, I'm not going to be there. Just walk around back. Go ahead and do it. So I did it. Took, 5 minutes. As I'm finishing, he comes and walks out the door and he says, hey, can you get this spot over here? And then I'm looking and the tiles are they're massive, like 4x4 tiles, big tiles. And I'm seeing little specks that looks like it's in the tile, little specks of a rust color, but they're tiny little dots. And I said, is that the tile? Because it's over here too. He goes, no, that's all from your guys. So a little red flag went up, but knowing that he hasn't paid us yet and we still need to get paid in the essence of good customer service, I said, okay, no problem. I'll take care of it. So after spending about an hour and a half cleaning this guy's entire fucking floor, I get to the end, and now he's saying that we put all these posts and everything down on the ground on his tile, and this is what caused it. Well, I get to the end, and there's an area where he has a cable railing that someone else had done, and the spacing underneath it is probably 1.5 inches. There's no physical way our posts could have gone to the outside of that. Well, all along the outside edge of that is the same stuff. So I knew it wasn't going to be it wasn't an us thing. Whatever. I was almost done. I finished it up, said, okay, we're done. He's happy. He calls back a couple days later, and all this stuff has reappeared. Clearly not, and by the way, 90% of this stuff was nowhere near anything we installed. He was just claiming we put stuff down and caused this. So now this has reappeared. There's clearly something going on within the tile, beneath the tile, whatever it is. That's not our issue. But he's expecting us to come and clean this again. So now that kind of pushes the issue of the quote-unquote warranty. You look like you're thinking.
I don't know how we could have mitigated this in the beginning. This is one of those things where you don't know what you don't know. It's almost like you have to go through one of these to be able to be prepared for the next one. So it's having managed expectations. Like if this guy doesn't think that we took care of this problem, he's going to associate the staining on this tile that was nowhere near the work that we did to us. He's going to assimilate those problems with us. So it's potential negative referrals. And so it's important that we take care of it. I'm actually going to go back there tomorrow and hopefully put this to bed. But I don't know that we could have mitigated this in the beginning because this wasn't something you could have asked me, what are 100 things that could go wrong? This wouldn't have been one of the things that I would have came up with.
That's true. We can mitigate it now, though. Now that we've eaten this shit sandwich, we know how to get around it. We can ahead of time, if we come across something like this, let's take a bunch of photos, videos. Let's look in areas where, it might not necessarily pertain to us and see if it's got the same thing there. Those are some things we can do, but we learn the lesson the hard way. But unfortunately, like Keith said, I don't know how we could have gotten around it from the beginning.
Our companies have been growing since 2003 when we started, growing at a pretty good clip, a nice trajectory, always up. As of recently, it feels like the number of opportunities coming in aren't as much as in the past. But because I have this high expectations of growth, sometimes you can get down on that. But luckily with you two guys and other team members within the business, we've been, during some of those times, we're almost kind of reinventing ourselves. We're filming more, getting into possibly doing more editing and getting our name out there and using that time wisely. And it just so happens as we're doing that, boom, this week, floodgates start opening again. Right. So not being consumed by the, ups and downs of business, having managed expectations, this is going to happen. This is the time of year. If it was going to happen, it's going to happen. What's going on politically or geopolitically, those can affect it. And what can you do when business isn't coming in? What can you do to, start building your brand stronger and getting your name out there? That's one thing that really kind of just hit me today with all the new recent opportunities that are coming in is not to get so down when you're having one of these lows, but think, what can we do to help the business when we're in one of these positions? So that's a takeaway from me this week.
Do you think there's any correlation to what we're seeing the past handful of days with kind of the influx of new opportunities? Do you think there's any correlation to what's going on? You mentioned geopolitically, and now the kind of, I don't want to call it a stop, but there's essentially like a stay on the tariffs on the European Union. And we saw the stock market rebound a little bit because of it. Do you think that it has anything to do with what we're seeing here?
I mean, I think so. I don't know that we're directly affected with the tariffs because a lot of our stuff, almost all of it, is domestic. But the people we do work for or the trades that are before us could be relying on a lot of these things. So it does affect us,
Right.
And affect how much business or when people are pulling the trigger on doing jobs with us. The gas prices are going down now too. I don't know if you've been noticing
are.
that
Yeah, they are.
rapidly. I just saw a place the other day that had diesel at like $3.05, and that's almost 70 cents down from.
305 diesel?
Yeah,
Wow.
I took a picture of it. It was at a 7-Eleven, and on January 20th, it was $3.75. So that's 70 cents. I mean, you start getting close, pushing $1 savings off of the gas across the board. You know, a lot of people are going to be happy, have a lot of extra money in the pocket, have that consumer confidence, more spending happening.
Well, not only that, I mean, all the items that are being transported throughout the country via freight and things like that. I mean, it's going to be a lot cheaper to.
Yeah, so I think it
do
could have
that,
an
so.
effect.
I think it does only because when we look at what we sell, we don't sell a necessity. We sell something that people, a lot of wine sellers or
Something they want.
something they want.
Not
And-
need.
Exactly. So our business is going to be very dependent. If I'm looking at my stocks in the morning and it's all red, probably not going to want to spend money on a want that day. Okay. Now let's space that out between a couple weeks. I'm probably not going to get that new wine cabinet or wine closet that I've been wanting because my stocks are down. My gas prices are up. Eggs are $10 a dozen. So with us not being a necessity, I think once the markets rebound and that price goes down on gas, people are going to start focusing on, okay, all my needs are met. What do I want? The money's there. The money's fine. My retirement's back up to where it was at. So I think that could be directly correlated, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that's a smart take, but I will also say my wife goes to Target for non-essentials every day.
Yeah. And Amazon.
And we do live in Naples, so
Yeah.
that's a lot of moolah.
Well, I think you did a phenomenal job hosting this show.
Yep.
And if you guys like this, we hope that you'd comment on topics that you might want to hear from us or maybe guests that you'd like to see. But please, if you enjoyed any of these podcasts, we'd love for you to subscribe, like, comment, share. But until next time.
See you then.